Sometimes I wish all of you could see what we record off camera, because that's some of the most hilarious conversation. But I'm always afraid to walk on eggshells when I do anything in public. But if any of you ever demand to really hear our real conversations, we'll figure something like that. All right. Anyways, hi, I'm Michael Dismuke, freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG, in addition to being the lead writer for Captain's Log RPG. Having so much fun watching Star Trek Adventures rebirth into 2E with fantastic game. We've had so many new releases, and really looking to do a lot more in the genre of storytelling on continuing conversations. And of course, there's no story to be told, in my opinion, unless I have my partner with me, Jim Johnson.
Hey everybody, Jim Johnson. I am the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Captain's Log Solo RPG, both published by Mepyans Entertainment, plus a bunch of other stuff at Mepyans that you'll be seeing in the coming months and years. Also a fiction writer at scribeandnetty.com, working on my fiction in addition to Star Trek and other things. So hopefully continuing to be doing more of that in the coming months and years as well. So also co-hosting this year's show with Michael for 180 plus episodes, moving on, barreling toward 200 here. Hard to believe.
I feel old.
4+ years, no stop, because we keep coming out with new Star Trek stuff, and we keep having new Star Trek stuff to talk about. So, and that's why we're here. So we're going to be talking about more cool Star Trek stuff tonight. And we have two wonderful guests on our show tonight. So without more ado, I'll have them introduce themselves, what they're here for, and then we'll just jump into the topic. So just going clockwise around my screen here as you do. Alex, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, so my name is Alex. I am a professional game master on Start Playing Out Games, and I run mostly Star Trek these days. Yeah, that's what I do now.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for being here.
I got to promote him because he's so humble. It's like playing his games worth every dollar he'll pay to play in his games. I played twice and I'm coming back for more. So really fun stuff he puts out there.
Super cool. And thank you, Alex, for your support. Always appreciate it. We always need more game masters out there running the games and more players out there playing the games. So thanks for everything that you're doing. Really appreciate it. And our second guest, Troy, please introduce yourself and then we'll jump in.
Hey, my name is Troy. I am a longtime writer for Star Trek Adventures, multiple other RPGs now through the Yellow Hand, and have been playing a Romulan starship captain for nearly 5 years now in Michael's Pioneer campaign. Getting close to the wrap up there, and I know I'm going to be ugly crying on that one, but you know.
But it's not the end. It's just the end of the series. It's not the end of Jalel. Remember that. And we'll talk about that. And I do want to say, too, there's something else special about this episode. When this episode airs, it will be a week after the first time me and Jim have actually met in person, because I'm going to Washington, D.C. And so we're meeting up for dinner. And I'm going to pretend, let me project myself into the future and be like, Jim, it's probably going to be the longest hug I've ever had with a man in my life. Because I've been waiting since 2018 to meet you and thank you and be appreciative. So I know I'm going to pretend to vibe off that energy right now.
18, has it been that long? Gosh.
Yeah, that's when I first came. I first interviewed you on Continuing Missions. Is the first time in 2018, and then in 2020 we started working together. When you let me be a freelance writer. But I want to say that I'm going to have that pre-glow right now from actually having our families meet. I'll be with my wife. You'll be with your family, and I know we're going to meet and have dinner. And I just want to say, like, this will be a week after that, so I know it's going to be awesome.
Well, I'm excited, and I can't wait to meet you. And I promise to shower beforehand.
Okay, please do. Yes. Okay. All right. Today we are talking about Romulax, and so I think it's only fair to have Troy, in my opinion, started off. We're going to go around, and my first question to everyone is: if you were to sum up the Romulans in 60 seconds, what would be your Netflix blurb on Romulans? Let's start with Troy. We'll go Alex. We'll go Jim.
Passionate, emotions, strength, secrecy, everything that Vulcans are not. You know, I almost look at them as humans time two. You know, they take everything that is human, everything that is strong about human emotion, and just expand on it. You know, make it more powerful, more intense, and that's why it's harder for them to hold it back when they do.
Excellent. Love that. Alex, your take, Romulans.
Yeah, very hard to follow that up. That was a very good summary. But the one thing I would like to add is that Romulans are all about not just secrecy, but also trust, right? You know, and loyalty, and loyalty to empire, and purpose that way. Yeah, trust being something that they highly value and cherish and protect in their own way. But then also everything that Troy said, because that was very good.
All right, Jim.
I would say more than anything else, they're enigmatic. You don't know what you're getting. They could be playing a double bluff. They could be playing a triple bluff. It could be a quadruple bluff. It's smoke and mirrors and subterfuge, and they've always got a purpose and a plan. But for you to figure that out, it's going to take some digging. And I appreciate that, because that's not something that I am, right? So to play a Romulan would require me to do some deep diving into being not so much duplicitous, but like having layers upon layers upon layers of things to hide and reveal, and not hide and not reveal, and everything's calculated enigmas is what I'd go with, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I'm going to add that because they needed to be everything you all described, because in my opinion, they were fighting for independence from Vulcan logic think. And in my opinion, dangerous Vulcan logic think, and the arrogance of the Federation to believe that they had the best way. I actually find an interesting comparison with the Romulans, with other nations on Earth who have this attitude like, wait a second, I don't have to buy into your dogma. We're doing okay over here. We don't need to become a part of you to be successful. That's what I've read from the Romulans all this time, which have made them one of the most intriguing species. And the way the way Troy plays his character in our game is that way. It's like, we're different. You're not superior. We're not inferior. We're just different. So I actually find Romulans a very intriguing character to play in Star Trek Adventures RPG. All right. So far, Jim, can you kind of refresh us? What in your collective knowledge has Star Trek Adventures RPG provided in the way of knowledge about the Romulans? Because we've never had a Romulan source book. And so that's a question that comes up a lot. So let's address that right off the bat. Why not? And what has Star Trek Adventures addressed about the Romulan?
Well, I think why not is just more than anything else is production schedule, right? Like we had a huge slate of products to work on, even starting way back in 2017 when we launched the game. We already had a huge list of stuff in the back of the book that we knew that we wanted to do, and that was 4+ years of just getting that done. And then we did Shackleton, and then we did the Klingon core book, and then we continued on to do other stuff. And it's like the time travel stuff and the alternate universe stuff and a lot of other stuff that we wanted to get to just kept getting kicked down the road. And then all of a sudden second edition happened and like everything shuffled, and we just never got the opportunity to do a full-blown Romulan type of product or source book. So just how it happened. But I know we did there's a big chunk of it in the Beta Quadrant book, and there's other stuff sprinkled out throughout other books, including the Shackleton book and the Gamma Quadrant source book. And there's a mission brief pack of Romulan storylines from the Federation point of view more so than the Romulan point of view. So yeah, it's just Romulans are just something that we really haven't quite been able to embrace fully yet. And I think the Romulans are happy about that.
Exactly. I was going to say, I actually like that because it enables players and game masters to create their own Romulus. So with that question, with that set up, let's go back to Troy and say, since you have extensive experience playing a Romulan character, if a player wants to play a Romulan character, why what kind of player wants to play a Romulan character? What would you say about that?
You're wanting to get into a mentality that is really not clearly defined. Like Jim said, they're an enigma, or like the movie said the one time, riddle wrapped in an enigma. It can really be pretty much any person, any personality you can think of. You look at the difference between, Michael, Methra versus Jalel, two, pure Romulans. But at the same time, you talk exact opposites, in the way that they approach their mentality.
Yeah, for those
Neither
of
one
you
is
who
right,
don't
neither
know,
one's
understand
wrong.
what he's talking. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, this is in our game. Captain Jalel is the first Romulan captain in Starfleet in our game. Methra is, of course, his arch enemy, and they have family backgrounds that are contested. So that's what he's referring to. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just sky's the limit on them. There's no real set mentality.
Yeah, Alex, we invited you on the show because you do have experience running a Romulan type game. Can you talk to us about what that looks like and how it informs how you play Romulan characters?
So the way that this kind of pops out, I run like Shackleton Expanse games right now, right? But they kind of in session 0, I'll kind of ask the players like, what does your ship do? Like, what are you interested in? Kind of like just customize things that way. And the group was like, well, we really want to do Romulans. It's like, well, let's just take the Shackleton Expanse, throw it in the middle of the Romulan Empire instead. And then every single time they meet people, they're usually Romulans, and then that changes the whole situation. And so the way we've done that is we're kind of post Romulan supernova. And the Romulan Empire is kind of like shattered, kind of having trouble kind of keeping together. And then this kind of is the foot in the door for the Federation to start exploring, and the Roman Empire by kind of providing support of like, we'll provide your empire stability so that, it doesn't break out into all out war, but also save lives, provide food, that kind of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And when they meet people, the way I'm running it is it's not always just a Tal Shiar or whatever things. They're meeting kind of the people on kind of ordinary planets within the Empire, and kind of seeing how those people live and what they value, that kind of thing, and getting to see a more diverse kind of range of values that Romulans embody.
Well, question though, when they're discovering these other planets within the former Romulan Star Empire, are they all Romulans, or are there worlds with other species?
Yeah. Well, we've so far mostly just Romulans, because we've been playing for I think like 6 sessions now, so it'll kind of grow from there. But yeah, that's a good point. Of like the Roman Empire is very big on all those maps, right? And it's like they're probably not all Romulans, right?
Right. Yeah. That's something we've explored a lot in our games too. And I think with the fall of the wall, we'll call the Hobus Supernova the fall of the wall. Right. I think that's the comparative to me. Is like, what's on the other side of the wall that we don't know about because of the Romulan secretive nature?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm giving time for the audience to bake on that. Because hasn't that been our question, Troy, in our game? It's like, what's on the other side?
Yeah. Because, we explored multiple different reasons for why the secrecy.
Yeah.
And even Jalel doesn't know.
Right. Was it to protect something that's good? Like, imagine, I think as, I don't want to say as Americans, as people, we get paranoid of what's on the other side as if it's inferior just by designation of not being us, by the designation of being other, that it has to be inferior. And our challenge in our game was maybe they had it so together that they didn't want interference on it.
Right.
And that's how we
Afraid
played
of
it
being
in our
tainted.
game, right? And so to me, it's unlocking that box. We bought recently. Me and my wife have bought our nephews the money box where it locks in, and in order to get the money out, they actually have to figure out the puzzle. And I'm like, oh, this is so Romulan. I'm thinking while I'm watching my little 8-year-old nephews try to, because we show them, we put the $10 bill in, and they only each get 2 minutes on it, and it's a fun game, right? And so I told my wife, I was like, this is so Romulan of us to do, like figure out the box. And I think that as game masters and players, playing the Romulans is for you to write what that lockbox is.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Jim, you're nodding. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think what we've seen from Romulans across the franchise is a lot of really interesting stuff and some interesting characters, but like any depth to the culture and the society isn't there, right? And that's almost I would almost argue it's intentional because the Romulans put so many layers around it, and I think creative players and game masters could probably safely make up your own layers and go as deep as you want with as many layers as you want, and you're probably not going to hurt canon. Like, there's only so much to play with, right? But I mean, you could even tap into some of the novels. I know there's some great Romulan novels out there, like the Riansu or Hanshu, yeah, and just mine those for bits and bobs, and like really look at the canon that's out there all across the franchise, especially if you're playing the long game. Look at the 32nd century and see how the Romulans rejoined the Vulcans back to Navarre, and then think about that long storyline. I mean, certainly Spock had a big piece of that in terms of unification, reunification. But maybe see how does your character plug into that or not plug into that.
Do you feel Spock was
so many possibilities?
Do you feel Spock was pro Romulan in the sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw that even in Next Generation, right? I think he be somewhere in the middle, somewhere in. I mean, I think a lot of it. Well, actually, they're doing a pretty good job of planting the seeds in Strange New Worlds. I think somewhere along the way, probably in the movies, he became, Mr. Diplomat, and started really working with the Klingons, getting them sorted out. And maybe Spock, with his human hubris, said, I can take on the Romulans too. And we saw that to some extent in Next Gen, where he was like, oh, I'm going to connect with these Romulans. And initially, it was a failed effort, but he kept at it for however many decades or whatever, and eventually we see that grow fruit way down the road.
Yeah, I think I'm very, I'm very angry almost at the Vulcans for how they painted the Romulans and influenced the Federation to feel about Romulans. I mean, how do you feel about that?
One thing I'd point out with Spock is, when he was young, in the original series, especially, that very logical, very rational, and yet as he grows, one of his more famous quotes is, logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end of it. He came to understand. Star Trek the motion picture is maligned, but one of the scenes that to me is perfect is when he's lying there in sickbay and he's laughing, and Kirk is just looking at him like, what's going on here? And he just reaches up and he grabs Kirk's hand and he says, Jim, this simple feeling, V'ger can't comprehend it. And the reason Spock was laughing was everything that he had gone for in Kolinar, V'ger already had it and was still searching. I don't understand. What am I? And that's why he was laughing, is the irony of everything that he had done before that meant nothing.
Interesting. And Alex, I saw you nodding your head when I said that Romulans have been misaligned, that there's been a smear campaign, not smear, that's on your bagel, a smear campaign from Vulcan. What do you think? What were you thinking?
Well, there's There's a thing that a pattern in Star Trek when they introduce like a new villains is that like they introduce a villain. They're usually kind of they have like one trait that so Romans are passionate or something like that. Klingons are violent, Ferengis are greedy, stuff like that. And then the because they have just that one trait, and they're being introduced for like just one episode or something like that. The Federation just views them as that one thing, but then as they get fleshed out, the Federation, like writers start thinking about like, well, what does this mean? It's kind of one dimensional, and they start like kind of trying to add depth to like individual characters, and then the Federation learns more about them as they go. It's kind of like just like a natural progression of, you need a villain for a show just for one episode, but then later on you need to do more with them than that. And so it kind of naturally kind of illustrates the Federation learning about their neighbors. And that's it's a very interesting process to me. And it's like any kind of villain that you have in anywhere, you can kind of do whatever you want with them. There's usually characters that kind of value all kinds of things, and you don't just have to go with the kind of like the mustache twirling villains in your games. You can create a character that has whatever kind of personality that you want, plop them into a society like Romulus, and then see how does that character feel about where they live in, right? And then let your players kind of explore that and be surprised by that. If you have a character who's a Romulan that they meet, your players might have certain kind of biases that they walk into it with, because they're not biases, they're tropes, right? And then you can kind of twist and surprise your players that way, by showing that they have some kind of hidden depth or something that they didn't consider there.
Exactly. What I'm trying to form the question. I don't do leading questions. I try not to do leading questions. So I want to ask in a good way. Like, what would you say Picard contributed more than it? Well, that's a leading question. How would you say Picard contributed to our view of Romulans in comparison to other Star Trek canon?
Yeah, I really and Picard. I really like what Picard added, especially in season 1, to the Romulans. I kind of led with it at the top, where it added this element of like Romulans value trust. Right. They're super secretive, but that means that the people that they give their secrets to are like the level of passion that they put behind that trust is so important. And that it's like, well, who do they trust? They trust family, like not necessarily always, but when they do trust family, it is strong. And trust is closely related to love and all that. And that was my favorite thing that Picard added is there's a kind of the positive opposite side of the coin of secrecy.
Oh, Athena.
Ooh, Troy, talk about it. I knew you were thinking that, but go ahead and talk about your experience with that.
And it's part of the reason why I wanted to, explore Jalel falling in love, getting married, and with somebody that wasn't a Romulan. And to make it even more interesting, Betazoid. You can't hide from a Betazoid. And as
Alex just went. Exactly.
And as I've been able to write these two, he's shown a little bit of latent ability to where he can sense when she's touching his mind. And at first, he hints that he was uncomfortable with it. And now it's just, that's another aspect of intimacy between them. A few times I've written, she'll call him Galan, which is, his given name. Jalel is his well-known name. Romulans have 5 different names. And one of them is a name that is only intimately known to very few. And that's part of the reason why I put that in that story, was to show, this is the level of trust between these two characters. And that's why, if there's a difference between them, it hurts him probably more than it does her, because, she understands, she can sense it, she can feel it. Whereas he doesn't. not the way that she does. You know, it's almost a breach of trust.
Yeah, it's crazy how that developed. I'm always thinking like, why is that never on screen? Because I think the one thing that TV shows do is they do focus on the human characters. The humans are
Mhm.
usually the center, and everyone else is the alien. Um, the shows tend toward that, which is maybe a bad thing. Maybe they should just let us explore actual aliens more, like they did with Worf.
Mhm.
Or I think they did a good job with Worf on that. Um,
Unification. That what do you
yeah,
think of your enemy, Captain? And Picard
yeah.
just shook his head. These people are no one's enemy.
Yeah. So I think the question is for players and game masters who want to introduce a Romulan character, they are the least surface. Though they have a surface, they're
Mhm.
some of the most in-depth characters. And I think Picard, to Alex's point, like Picard to me is where once I found out like the wall fell and you can get into Romulan lines, my curiosity as to what's been going on back there went well. I don't
Mhm.
believe the Federation would have purely benevolent reasons to go in there and help.
No, not all of them.
Jim? Jim's eyes went up. Jim, do you think that the Federation would be fully benevolent in going to render aid to the Romulans?
No, I mean not entirely. Give me 1 second. I'm going to sneeze.
And this is good to mention while he sneezes, is because remember, Star Trek Adventures 2E lends to playing post Hobus supernova. And I know there's going to be some stuff coming out. Hold on, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you could create a game that is you can focus on Fenris Rangers and what they're doing, going to David Mack's Firewall novel, which is amazing if you have a chance to read it. But Jim, like, go ahead.
Back,
I'm going to shut up before I breach an
back,
NDA.
I'm back from the Hobus sneeze. Um, and this is one of the things I wish we had time and the schedule to do a Romulan source book, because what I really want to do is, and I started this a while ago, I want to finish it. I started putting together a timeline of all the canon Romulan moments that we know of, right? And started trying to get that high level picture of everything that was happening, and Picard really threw not so much a wrench, but really threw some stuff in there that really kind of makes you think about the Federation in another light, right? Like Federation security really sucks because
Yes.
there have been so many infiltrators into Starfleet security over the course of like Next Gen and Picard. You're like, what are they doing? How did they manage to do this? Because like I think of that episode Data's Day, where you think it's just kind of a throwaway episode talking about Data going through his day and creating a law and all these little things, but there's like a B plot in there about them escorting a Vulcan ambassador who gets captured by the Romulans, presumed killed, and actually turns out to be a Romulan spy. It's like, okay, that another one. I mean, how many of them are there? And and so then Picard, you got the whole Commander, what's her name? I think, right?
Commander O, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She was there for like 30 years.
Yeah, so there's this whole subplot, thread throughout a whole bunch of Star Trek of Romulans infiltrating Starfleet security at the highest levels and manipulating it, as they see fit. And absolutely,
well, even as children, remember there's some beta canon lore that they inserted them as children to grow up among human families. So what kind of indoctrination is that?
Right. So then Hobus happens and the Romulus supernova goes happen. All that happens, and then this is where the layers you can start really digging down into it and thinking about it. Was it an accident? Was it on purpose? Was it were there machinations within machinations within machinations that made that happen? I mean, there's all kinds of directions you could go with it, and you could even touch on modern politics and recent politics and the whole American Russian Cold War. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can play with it.
Well, I think I'm gonna just my personal experience is one of the favorite countries I've ever visited was China. Watch me get arrested over this. But when I was there, one of the biggest impressions that humbled me was there's such a long-standing culture, 4,000 years of recorded history. And it humbled me because I was like, even if an America never existed, China would still exist as a people and an ethnicity. And I was so proud of that. My wife is half Asian, half Chinese. My family's Chinese predominantly on her side. And it reminded me of Romulan. Because I was like, who am I to assume that because it's different than where I grew up, that it's inferior in any way? That's just hubris, right? And so when I play Romulans, I kind of play from that. It's like like anyone who has a chance, visit China. The landscape is amazing. The food is amazing. There's so many ethnic differences there. There's such a connection to America and the Native Americans. You can see it when you go to the museums. It's so clear and obvious. There's so much we don't know because we're growing up in the American school system. And I kind of find Romulans to be the same. It's like, what don't we know? Why do we have to go in with paranoia and fear? And why can't we go in with admiration and curiosity? And that definitely deepened our game coming from that aspect. Right, Troy?
Absolutely. Because, we saw, Federation individuals that, supported Jalel, supported the initiative to try to rescue, Romulus and Remus. And at the same time, we saw people that were actively trying to stop it. They were willing to destroy billions of lives because they didn't like them.
Yeah.
And then that was
the USS Pioneer saved them all.
I think it was one of my happiest moments was having Jalal walk out of that room and just look over at Aaron's telerate and just go, "Enjoy yourself, Commander," and walk out and listen to him bawling out an admiral.
Yeah, so we played, just for people who don't understand what's happening, we played full conspiracy theory on this, and we baked deep in that the Romulans are different, but they're not enemies. that there was Vulcan motivations toward making them enemies because of longstanding embarrassment on the Vulcans on how they handled that situation. That's how we chose to write it. But the point is, you can write it any way you want to because Star Trek has left it a mystery. Right. There's a lot of thinking going on. For people who are not watching the video cast of this, people are going eyes up right, which in psychology, just so you know, eyes up right means people are thinking and grasping for ideas.
Well, I don't know, grasping for ideas. I'm certainly thinking. But I just, just listening to this, I like the idea that the Vulcans, probably somewhere deep down are kind of vindictive and wanted to get back at the Romulans, right? And I think I like the idea, and this is just half baked. I'm just riffing right now that somewhere in the 22nd, 23rd centuries, I think the Romulans got involved in the Vulcan. What was it called? The extremist, the Vulcan extremists. Yes. I think the Romulans did a little nudging along in there somewhere. And they probably didn't have to do a lot, right? Because the Vulcans once they let their repressed emotions go, they're pretty far out there. Boy. The Romulans were just giving them little nudges here and there, right? So, and then probably somewhere along the way, a Vulcan figured it out and said, "Oh, we're going to get you back. Even though we're stoic, stoic, emotionless Vulcans, we're gonna make you pay." And there's probably another layer of that to play with. So, and of course, this does get into the dark side a little bit of Star Trek, and that a lot of people don't want to focus on that, want to focus on the more utopian, optimistic point of view, which I totally respect. But gosh, it's so easy to start digging for the darkness, right?
Alex, were you gonna say something?
It's only half a thought right now. Go ahead.
No. Going to Jim's point, I think that as Star Trek matures as an intellectual property, it's a little naive and irritating to the average viewer to assume that a organization as big as the Federation is that utopic. I think where Star Trek is leaning now and where it will capture people is the fact that your crew is utopic. Your crew is the best out of the best, and your crew is going to be the shining light that's going to show the Federation how they should go. That's what Kirk did. We know that. Kirk did that in a very tumultuous time where he had to fight Starfleet many times in order to prove the right thing to do. So I'm going to ask, the next generation of Star Trek viewers who are very critical of organizations and government and administrations, rightfully so in this time and age, to say your job is to be the exemplars, and your crew that you choose to play in Star Trek Adventures are the best of the best, ethically, morally, educationally, intellectually, and that's where your game can shine. And I know that's where our games have gone, because I'm super controversial in our games. I do a lot of session zero check-ins. Like, I'm about to hit some hard subjects here to make us think, and it's painful, but each time they rise to the top, and show that they're the best, even if the Federation is not in some cases. And I think Romulans were the perfect catalyst for that.
Yeah.
If you want to, generally good role-playing advice, good GMing advice, if you want to have a great session, just like pack a room full of powder kegs, right? And then just have somebody standing around with a match, right? And the way that you can do that, Romulans are of kind of the big Star Trek species, probably the most political of them all that I can think of, right? There's not just political in universe, but there's also a lot of pretty obvious historical analogs and stuff going on there. But if you want to have a great Star Trek session or campaign, just have two bodies of authority that have ill intent, and then put your players kind of in the middle of that in order to kind of navigate those two things. So you can have the Federation with their goals, and they want something and they're willing to hurt people to get it. You have the Romulans with their goals, and they want something and they're willing to hurt people to get it. And then your players, the heroes of the story, just need to kind of navigate these two colossal political powers in order to help maybe just a few people. And it's very, very easy to suddenly get tangled up in the weeds, even as the GM being oh man, I don't know how we're going to get out of this one, right? And you can kind of just follow the dice and follow the story, see where that goes together with your players. Just generally good setup is just make a very impossible situation like that.
You're dead right. Yeah. I mean, Troy, how many times has your character thrown in their pips at Starfleet?
Physically once, but probably a half a dozen times in his head going, you know what?
He literally, I remember 2 times where you're like, you know what, fine, don't do it your way, and I'm out of here, and it's on your consciences, and Starfleet has backed off. And I love those. He's been in JAG at least 3 times.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been JAG 3 times in 4 seasons, because one, he's a Romulan and people put him there as a poster boy, and they didn't expect him to take command, but Lana Torres gave him command, battlefield commission, and they were kind of like, darn, we're stuck with this now. He totally is qualified, but we didn't want to appoint a Romulan to this because he's Romulan. It was total racial bias. And he's thrown in his pips multiple times. To your point, Alex, Starfleet has been the villain on several occasions in our game.
Yes.
Yeah, which is great. I love stories like that. It may upset grognards, but it's our game. We can do whatever the heck we want.
and the beauty of it is we've always balanced it out. There are people in the Federation, and in Starfleet that have supported them to the nth degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet confrontation between Janeway and Nechayev.
Yeah.
You may outrank me, but you will never outclass me.
Exactly. That's fun drama right there.
Mm-hmm.
So with this said, let's go around and talk about why to play a Romulan. Because I think there's probably, Jim, wouldn't you agree that we've talked about different species, but Romulans are probably the most complex to play?
Oh, I don't know. I think Cardassians are pretty complex too.
Oh my gosh!
All things considered, but Romulans are fun. I think just because of what we're talking about, right? Because there's so many layers, and you don't know which ones to believe, right? Or you believe all of them, or you believe none of them. And it's like they're all true to some degree, right? I mean, Cardassians have that as well. I think I honestly don't know. I don't know why players like to want to play Romulans. If nothing else, probably because they're different than what we see from the fairly straight-laced Federation that we see time and again on the TV shows.
Well, too, it's interesting. You know how I've noticed on social media, Jim, have you noticed it, that people are always like, I want my person to have some connection to Section 31. I think Romulans are an actual good alternative. Like, why can't your player secretly be a Romulan?
Yeah. Although I wonder if the Vulcan secretly a Romulan trope has been done enough.
But that's Vulcans as Romulans. What about a human who's actually a Romulan? What about a Klingon who's actually a Romulan?
Yeah, I mean, we did. Next Gen, we did a Betazoid, actually a Romulan, right? So.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So why not? Why not Romulan?
Also, one of the most fun things to do in role playing games is be like, oh, I want to do the thing that I saw on TV that one time. That was cool. I want to do that.
Yep.
And so sometimes those used tropes are kind of the most fun things for players to kind of dig into and kind of add their own take to.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I really like the character of Simon Tarses. I think Tarses would make a great player character, especially in that period of Next Gen where all that anti-Romulan propaganda was so fresh in the Federation, which is kind of unexpected. But to play that character, okay, you were secretly, not who you were, but then you got outed. But you're still in, right? The courts, cleared you, and you're still able to serve in Starfleet. But you still got that bias that you got to live through day by day. People looking over their shoulder at you and stuff. And how does that?
Not again. I'm going to say not unexpected though, because the Vulcans, remember, since the time of Enterprise, what they did to the Andorians have proven that they will do anything to keep their rep clean. I've been mad at the Andorians since Star Trek Enterprise. I've been mad at the Vulcans since Star Trek Enterprise season 1. I was like, 1, they were holding the humans back the whole time, and 2, they totally did a smear campaign against the Andorians. They did not deserve to be Federation members. I'm going to still stick to that. The Romulans have been dogged out this entire time. I'm sticking that. I'll write a novel one day about it.
There you go.
All right, let's do a go around about Romulans. I could go on long. Troy's heard me go on for 4 years about this, about my opinion about Vulcans and stuff like that. So let's do a go around about Romulans. I'm not trying not to be depressed, but I want to encourage people to play Romulans. Troy, you start us off. Let's do our go around.
I think with Romulans, like I said before, you've got a bit of a clean slate. Like humanity, there are so many different personalities. There are so many different people, that view things differently, that look at things differently. And Romulans are going to be the same way. There's certain things that they're going to hold secret that others wouldn't. They're going to be more open about things that others wouldn't. So, you take it, run with it. My only recommendation would be take whatever you think a human would do, double it.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you
as far as emotions go.
I'm going to ask you one additional question that I want all of you to answer too. Your favorite, if you were to suggest someone your best episode to watch about Romulans and all of Star Trek canon, what would be your recommendation episode for them to watch about Romulans?
Balance of Terror.
Balance of Terror. Okay.
Balance of Terror. Hands down.
TOS. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's great. Okay. All right, Alex, Romulans and your recommendation for episode for them to watch for Romulans.
Yeah, so you should play a Romulan. I think obviously if you want to have secrets, you come up with a secret and then give that to your game master and then tell them to do whatever they want with it, right? And if that's the kind of character you want to play, just pick a Romulan, and because that's going to pack as much drama into your secret as possible. It's going to make sure that your secret is goes as badly for the story as possible, right? Because the Romulans pump everything up to 11. As far as episode that you should watch about them, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say the two-part. I think it's a two-parter of the reunification episodes of TNG.
Yeah, excellent suggestion. Love those. Okay, I'll go next because I want to hear Jim's final take because he always has a good episode depth. Romulans, I think, are the perfect analogy to propaganda that we see in the world between governments right away, trying to blanket entire ethnicities with a blanket statement, which is not true. I think we need to look beyond the veils of propaganda and get to know the humans that are living on Earth, because the humans matter, not the politics. So I think if you want to explore that ethnic social dynamic, Romulans, if you want a political game, Romulans are the game to play. And I just Troy's made me fall in love with Romulans and playing for all these years. And I look forward to more Romulan games in the future. They will be back. My favorite episodes, I would actually have to say that Picard season 1 really made me love the diversity that's within the Romulan Empire that we have not seen yet, whether it's the Kawat Malat. Did I pronounce that right? Kawat Malat? Did I say it right, everyone? Yeah. And Elnor and Captain, or excuse me, Admiral O in there, like that. We've not even pulled back the curtain to how intrinsic the Romulans are to the Beta Quadrant. Picard season 1 is probably my favorite expose on Romulans, which left me thinking a lot about them. All right, Jim, Romulans in your favorite episode.
Yeah, as an aside before I jump in, Picard season 1 was really interesting too, in that it showed us both the Kawat Malat, but also the Zad Vash. Yes. Right. So that's two secret societies that were living within Romulan space. And I think if nothing else, and what I was going to say about the Romulans is that it's an interesting culture in Star Trek where you get some depth, right? But by the nature of that depth, you have a clean slate to do whatever you want, and it'll all fit, right? It'll all fit because there's layers and layers and layers everywhere, and so whatever you create is probably going to fit somewhere within those layers of canon, right? Like, who's to say there's not another secret society doing something different related to the Zat Vash or not related to the Zat Vash, and maybe there's another militant organization like the Co-op Malat that have some other thing going on. So
we created ours. We created ours was the Z-Med Romulans. They run it all.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I think the Romulans are neat in that respect because, like, we've talked before where, if there's a really cool species on Star Trek that has like a one-off episode or something, like, oh, that's really cool, I want to take that species and make it my own. The Romulans, you've got even more material to work with, and you can, like I said, you can still go deep into it and still not feel like you're butting up against canon and not being able to do cool stuff with it. Yep. So I say, grab it and have fun and do cool stuff. As far as my favorite episodes, I think it might have been because of the actor, but I think the Defector in Next Gen was really, really good because it showed, Admiral Jirok, like, really tired of his government's policies and processes and stuff, that he latched onto these rumors and didn't really recognize them for what they were. And maybe he should have realized that they were throwing him a double cross, but he was so earnest. And I think I really like that episode, partly because of the actor, but also just because of the way Picard played off of it. Yeah. And made him wonder, are there other people in the Romulan hierarchy that think like that, and maybe there's hope for something positive to come out of this. And eventually we saw that play out. But I think the Defector is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I give an honorable mention too to the Face of the Enemy episode where Counselor Troy was forcibly surgically altered. Yeah. Like, that is like one of the best Romulan episodes of TNG, I thought too. That was, got lots of their psychology. Whoa, earthquake. I'm literally having an earthquake right here in California right now.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow.
I hope you're all right.
Yeah, it's okay. It was a big one. Okay. Probably like a 5-pointer, 6-pointer. That was weird. It's because we're talking about Romulans. They're trying to kill me with a
Right?
photonic beam to the Earth's core. We need to end this episode now. I don't have time for gratitude.
It's the
I'd like to be
Vulcans.
thankful to the Romulan High Command for that was weird. Literally an earthquake. Okay.
Wow. Wild.
I think we should wrap up this episode here. Check on my family upstairs, and then we'll come down and do our next episode. but gratitude for being alive and surviving yet another California earthquake. Let's go, Troy, Alex, Jim.
Right, gratitude to just Michael. You have given me the template to create, the greatest character I have ever played in 40 plus years of role playing.
Oh, wow.
I will never have another character or campaign like I have on Pioneer.
We'll try. We'll try.
Oh,
now
yes.
You're giving me something to live up to. All right. Thank you, Troy. I love you, man. Alex.
Gratitude. Right now, I am so thankful to be playing so much Star Trek. I'm playing Star Trek 3 times a week right now, and I'm having so much fun with it. Yeah, that's what I'm grateful for right now. I just get to think about Star Trek and play Star Trek every day now, and it's great.
All right, everyone, and please shout out your link to people who want to play and have an amazing experience.
Yeah, startplaying.games/GM/GM Alex is where I am.
Fantastic. I wish I could do it every week. I don't have the time, but I've played with him twice, and it's been such a fun game. And if you've never played before, you especially should play with him just so you get to see what Star Trek Adventures 2E is like. All right, Jim, take us out.
I am grateful to all of you for playing Star Trek, enjoying Star Trek. I mean, even if it's just listening to you, how much you're loving the campaigns that you're in. That's Star Trek RPG, right? It's not Star Trek Adventures. It's not Fast. It's not Last Unicorn Games. It's just Star Trek as a storytelling property, as a franchise, lends itself so well to role-playing games, whether it's a solo RPG or a traditional type of RPG with friends. Every single one of my best RPG experiences for the last mumble decades has been a Star Trek game of some sort or another. I've had good D&D games. I've had good games in other systems and other properties and stuff, but it's always been Star Trek that's always gotten me excited, and always the ones I look back fondly on. I've got my binder here somewhere full of Star Trek memories, Star Trek RPG memories. And so I got to thank, Gene Roddenberry and everybody involved in creating Star Trek, but also everybody involved in creating RPGs, right? Those two things crashed together in the 80s for me in a way that I will never recover from, and I have no interest in recovering from, because it's been such an amazing journey. And the fact that I am now in this position where I can touch all of you with the games that we create and the things that we do, plus all the fans out there watching our shows, I'm grateful just to be in that position and to be able to feed off of what everybody's doing with their games and their campaigns. Because I'm always excited to hear about Jalal and the Pioneer and Alex. Every time I hear about what you're doing, it's like, oh man, that's so cool. You're playing 3 times a week. How jealous am I? How jealous am I that you get to you can play 3 times a week? I can barely scratch one episode a couple
every 3 months.
Every 3 months or something, right? Man, whenever this thing is done, I'm going to be just playing and running this thing all the time, and I can't wait. But I don't want it to happen either, because I don't want it to end, because we're having such a good time making new content for everybody, right? But so anyway, yeah, grateful for all of you, grateful for everybody involved in RPGs and Star Trek, and finally grateful to all the fans, right? Without the fans supporting the game, playing the game, enjoying the game, sharing the game, we wouldn't still be making it, right? So thanks for everything you do, folks. Love y'all.
All right. IDIC.
Live long and prosper.
True.
Well, see you next time.